In this lesson, we're going to have a look at how the new elevation can be sped up by looking at what we have already done on the section. Now, the way to do this is pretty similar to what we did with these plans over here. You have the original section that you're going to be working on, and you can now, if you're ready or if you've done enough work on it, you can take that entire section and basically copy it as a reference and place it next to your elevation that you're going to start drawing. Just remember which one is actually your original and official drawing, so that you do start remembering to delete or at least not print out the versions that you copy. So one of the techniques that you can do is that you can draw a rectangle around the temporary versions. You can either draw a line through the entire drawing, so that you basically know that this is not the original or the official drawing that you should follow. You should also note that every time you start revising the original drawings, you need to then recopy this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now line up the elevation with the section, and you can simply do this by finding your common datum point, which is the 0 line, and this can now be manually aligned. So now we will remember that we need to go and edit our UCS. So I'm going to just open up that UCS toolbar, and I'm going to quickly change the UCS, type plan, current UCS, see enter, and I then have the orientation that is now facing that new elevation. So next I'm going to have a look at the section. Perhaps I'm going to move it to this side, and I'm going to now see how I can use things from here to influence and speed up the work that I'm doing here. So already one of the things that we can definitely do is we can actually go ahead and update the levels that we have added. So we know that the first floor, as well as top of slab and top of roof, all of these details are going to be exactly the same. So we can just take that and slide it across. The important thing here to do, though, is to make sure that everything lines up. This is just to make a point of having an organized layout. You want to make sure that all of the similar and relevant information lines up with each other, so that we can have a certain type of legibility. So you don't want to make that scattered. The same thing with the dimensions. You want to make sure that your dimensions are all lining up, especially when they are running dimensions. So you can just go and stretch that out and use another dimension to snap it to. With the grid lines, it's exactly the same thing. You want to basically make sure that all of your horizontal height lines are all ending at the same place. So you can draw a line, trim the backs off, and then the new lines you can basically just go and extend to the ends. Also, if you feel like you need more space, you can just enlarge these borders. I like to have these borders around. It just does show where the extents of your drawing are, because you can see here things really do start getting quite close, and you don't want to confuse any two drawings with each other. So another thing that I see is not really correct here is that these are all sitting on the side. So we're going to have to individually go and rotate them, grabbing the midpoint and turning each one around by 90 degrees. The other thing that you can do is once you've rotated one of them, you can match properties, and you can then click on the others, but you will notice that the center point of that F does change. So what you can do is you can either rotate each one of them individually, or you can, as I mentioned, do the match property and then go and move all of them together so that you place them correctly. Here again, if you want to be really neat, you can go and draw a line from the G and then just make sure that all of them are on that same line. But if you don't need to be, or if you can do it by eye, do so, since it will be much quicker. So now we've finished setting up the basic structure for the elevation. We've used most of the elements from the section, so already that's a little bit faster. And we're going to do exactly the same thing for the parts of the building. We're going to start looking at the main corners that we can trace lines from. So doing the elevation of this will be exactly the same process as what we have done for this part. So it will look more or less like what we have done over here. Now, with regards to the pool, we know that we have drawn that pool in section. So if I look at the end of the pool, which is round about over here, I can start to now use the information from here to now copy. So I can take that entire section, I'm going to copy it across temporarily, and I can start drawing horizontal lines in a gray color that basically match up to what I have done here. Here I know that the ground line is going to be at this height, so we can also draw in that ground line. And once we have that done, we can delete this object. We know that this is the ground and this is the concrete for the room flow, and this is the water that will be spilling over. So these are all the major lines that have been pulled out of that section. So you definitely want to make sure that all of these things correlate, that the distances on plan are equal, that the elevation and the section all match up. All of those things do need to have that relationship, since it's obviously the same building. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at a few other major points that I can draw rays from. I can take the end of these slabs. I can then take this building. And all of those things are now going to start forming my building. So from here on, I'm not really going to draw anything live on the video. I'm rather just going to mention that to remind you that you always have the elements around you that you can then copy and use so that you can speed up your workflow. And the main tip that I'm offering is that you always create a temporary copy of something, rotate it and move it into the right position, and then just have a closer relationship between what you're working with. And then always remember just to delete those temporary copies. So that will be hopefully a nice technique that you can use in your own project so that you can speed up the way that you're working.